Hello and welcome. Today we will talk about ferritin screening and intravenous iron therapy for pregnant women who are not anemic. The study we are going to cover is called the FAIR study. And I am Professor Khalid Khan from University of Granada. And with me to discuss the topic, I have Professor Tayyaba Wasim, who is the chief investigator of this trial, and our co-investigator, Dr. Natasha. Both Dr. Tayyaba and Natasha are joining from Lahore. And to begin with, I would like to request Professor Tayyaba to introduce yourself, please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'm Professor Tayyaba Wasim and working as Principal and Head of Gynae Department at Allama Iqbal Medical College, Jinnah Hospital, Lahore.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Natasha, please, could you also introduce yourself?
I'm Dr. Natasha, and I'm currently working as Assistant Professor of Gynae and Obstetrics at Postgraduate Medical Institute, Lahore General Hospital.
All right, thank you both very much. We will return to see the background as to how this study got established. First of all, the plan to undertake a study in women who are otherwise described as normal on the basis that they do not have anemia and their hemoglobin is above the level of 11. This idea was discussed in East London, but the trial could not be commenced because colleagues had slight objection to giving injection treatment to women who are not anemic. However, this challenge was overcome in Lahore, where under the leadership of Professor Tayyaba, we were able to commence a multi-center trial following ethics approval. So I'm going to ask Dr. Tayyaba to explain how did you overcome the challenge and how did you manage to convince three centers to take part in the trial?
Anemia is the commonest problem in developing countries. The literature reports almost incidence of 40 to 60%. And it has got all the adverse effects that we all see in pregnancy. So, already the topic was close to my heart, being in the profession and professor for some time. And this idea of non anemic iron deficiency was totally a new idea to us. And so we thought that it's worthwhile conducting a study in which the patients can be recruited and ultimately they can be given IV iron and finally we can see the results. The other two centers that collaborated with me, both PIs, Professor Arif Tajammal and co-PIs Arif Tajammal and Professor Shamsa, they are already working at two other centers. They were working at that time and being professors and in tertiary care hospitals, all this topic was also close to their heart. To say they gave their willingness to participate in the trial.
Okay, so from 2015, we fast forward to 2020, just in December of the year before in 2019, ethics approval was obtained. And here you see the names of the three centers plus the letters of their ethics committee approval. The trial was then, in the beginning of 2020, registered in clinicaltrials.gov. And then it was time to start recruitment, and soon after started the COVID. So there were many challenges, which we will cover in a moment. But here we see how women were approached in clinic after their eligibility was assessed. They signed a consent form. Their data were entered through an online system established for the trial. Around 1,200 women were screened, and then 600 were randomized. At the time of randomization, they were given a box in which either they had a course of tablets or they had the injection. In order to undertake the trial, the colleagues in the various hospitals needed to have sufficient experience and qualification in undertaking a trial. For this aspect, Dr. Natasha, may I ask you to just explain what are the challenges that were faced?
Thank you so much, Dr. Khalid. Yes, it was a big trial for all of us to conduct, and it was the first hand experience for all of us. So, the thing that we were not that much experienced, a GCP training was arranged for all the participants who were part of the trial so that they can understand how this randomized control trials are being conducting, and GCP training was offered to all of them as a part of their training to conduct this trial.
So once people were trained, it was then possible to continue with the recruitment. And of the 600 people then randomized, and half of whom who received injections, uh, obviously there were some people who were lost to follow up. Then outcome data were collected at the time of delivery. All of this process needed to be supervised. And this supervision was carried out by a data monitoring committee and a trial steering committee, whom you see here on the screen. So there came a time when the database had been completed and we needed to proceed to analyze and publish. At this stage, I would like to ask Dr. Natasha once again to explain to us what were the challenges in moving from completion of the study and getting to publication.
After completing the recruitment, now the next step we had was how to do the data analysis. And for that, statistical analysis plan was designed for this trial, and the Spanish team took participate in this, and we are really grateful for them because had not the expertise for this kind of trial to do the data analysis. So the statistical analysis plan was designed by the Spanish team, and they did all the analysis, and they had a great contribution in making the fair trial possible.
Okay, so once the statistical analysis plan had been created, at that point, a data sharing agreement was reached between Lahore and Granada, and then data were transferred to Spain for statistical analysis. So here is the basic flow diagram of the study, where 1,200 people screened and ultimately follow-up completed for over 450 people. And obviously, everybody's happy that we have reached the target. And the baseline comparison shows that the women in the intervention and the treatment groups were roughly equal in terms of their age, hemoglobin, and other characteristics. And now we show you the results. What we see is that the intervention group demonstrated that at the time of delivery, the number of people who developed anemia was much smaller compared to the number of people who developed anemia in the oral iron group. The number of anemic women, the percentage of anemic women in the intervention group was 23, whereas the percentage of anemic women in the intervention group was around 70%. And this difference, according to the statistical analysis, was significant. And additionally, what we also saw was that the baby's growth restriction was much lower, and the baby had a better cord hemoglobin and cord ferritin. So, in summary, we had a mother who had a better outcome in terms of avoidance of anemia, and a baby who had a better outcome in terms of nutritional parameters at the time of birth. Turning now to Professor Tayyaba, could you please highlight what is the importance of these findings?
I think that's I must say, a groundbreaking research that tells that IV iron and the stores of the women should be replaced so that they don't develop anemia at the end. So, this trial suggests that hemoglobin should not be a screening marker. The serum ferritin should be considered as a screening marker in all pregnant women uh, across all the trimester and especially the second trimester.
Natasha, could you also comment a little bit about what the peer reviewers said about what we could have done different in our study?
As you have mentioned that those ladies who got the IV injections were also anemic. So the peer reviews suggested that was the iron dose given to the patients was appropriate to prevent anemia. So that is the basis of our new trial that will be called FAIR 2, where we may increase the dose of the intravenous iron to see the effects not only on the mothers but also specifically on the weight of the babies. So that will be the basis of FAIR 2.
All right, thank you. Dr. Natasha, would you like to give any final comment to our audience, both at a professional level for obstetricians and midwives, but also at the public level for pregnant mothers?
For me, the thing that FAIR trial proved was that the ferritin screening is now more important than screening for hemoglobin. That is the routine practice, even suggested by WHO. So, we as a healthcare professionals working in the developing countries should be shifting our antenatal care towards ferritin screening as compared to the hemoglobin screening. That will help to prevent anemia, which, as the principal investigator has mentioned, one of the biggest reason of maternal morbidity and even mortality in terms of postpartum hemorrhage. So ferritin screening is the new thing that needs to be incorporated in the upcoming guidelines.
Okay, Dr. Tayyaba, the same question to you. Would you like to give a final message to our audience?
Yes, I would like to say that we should be always open to the new concepts that float around. We generally do the routine things as obstetrician gynecologists because in this message is for all the general practitioners, the residents, and also the team leads in various tertiary and secondary care hospitals, that we can incorporate serum ferritin as our screening test. And more so over, we must consider the people who are not doctors and the pregnant women. The message to them is that routine antenatal care is a very important tool in preventing the morbidity and mortality, and they should get their screening test done initially at the stage of like first or second trimester so that we can prevent the morbidity and mortality which anemia does.
All right, with this, we bring the video to an end. Thank you very much, both of you, Dr. Natasha and Professor Tayyaba.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.